Hey, this is Magna, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to create a brand new faction. This one will be done for Rome 2. There might be a couple of additional things you need to do if you're doing it in Attila or in Warhammer, but this is generally the basic set of tables and such that you need to do to get a new faction in-game. So we can open up the assembly kit. This can't be done in PFM, because in PFM you can't really edit the CAI tables, so you will need the assembly kit to do this. Okay, so let's start off by jumping into the table launcher, and we're going to create a new faction. I need to create a faction for my mod Vevictus anyway, so I'm going to actually do that while we are doing this tutorial. So the faction, I'm just going to get a faction name. Regions. So I'm going to create what I'm going to be doing here is creating an emergent faction, and then I'll just do some extra stuff which I'll delete later for my mod, but just to show you how to actually get a starting faction as well. So I'm going to need so the first place we go, of course, is to the factions table. Here it is. And we're just going to go straight away and add a record. Scroll all the way to the bottom because that's where it'll be. And I'm going to call this the emergent. And that's what I'm going to call it. Okay, now we're going to pick a subculture. This one will be Greek. Category playable. I mean, all the factions are playable. It just gives you the option to, but it does this. Clicking playable here doesn't mean that you can play it in the campaign. Okay, so what are we going to call this? We're going to call this Athens Emergent, or even Emergent Athens. I'll probably change the name of it later. If it is a rebel, actually, no, we just change it and call it. No, that's fine. Athenian Revolutionaries. This is for when it's a rebel. And that'll do. Okay, so now we pick a name group. So this is where all the character names are going to come from. So we want to have Greek, of course, or Hellenic, perhaps. Yeah, Hellenic's good. Then the skin. This probably. Yeah, just grab one from one of the vanilla versions. So we've got Hellenic here for in Rome 2. Is Rebel. Pretty sure it is a Rebel faction, this one. Oh no, but okay, in this tutorial it's not going to be a Rebel faction, but when I'll have to go back and change it. Now you've got the icon and the flags path, so just make that the same as there, but for the flag you can actually change the folder where you want all the flags to be in. I'm not going to actually create flags in this tutorial, so I'm just going to keep it as Carthage, and it's going to be the Carthage flag that shows up for it. Same for here. I'm also not going to bother with this is for like all the different colors, like when you're looking at the mini map, or you know, all that kind of stuff. You have different colors here you can set. So I'm just going to copy those from a random one up here, because I don't actually want to go through and putting exactly which colors I want just yet. It's not really necessary for just showing you how to get the faction in game. Then we pick a military group. This determines what kind of units it can recruit. Right. Then settler rebellion faction, we don't need that. These two tables here are if you want to allow it to be selected in custom battles, which this is not for that. This is for doing it in campaigns. I'm going to leave it as false. And I'm going to put this as false as well. This isn't really used. This one, I'm not sure. All the factions seem to be set to this in Rome 2, so I just do it as that. Okay. You can see here I've already created a whole bunch of other factions as well. So essentially I'm just copying what I've done there. You are attacking Emergent Athens. Okay. Oop, caps lock. Again, here we just copy this. Placeholders here, fine. Can be regionless, yes. So if you capture your last region in Rome 2, you get given a few more turns to go and try capture another region. So we'll allow that to happen. Then the diplomacy culture, we want to be Hellenistic. And this one here, I'll just find a vanilla entry which has something which I want. Something about senators or something, judges, that'll do it. Rather than writing it all out myself. Now percentage n of percentage n means, for example, the first one will be 50 of, and then the 1200 will be the second n, tribal chiefs. Minus percentage n, exactly the same. Yeah, and so that's what that means. N just stands for the number. Okay, so we're all done there. Click apply. Now the next one we're going to go to faction banners, and we'll set up the faction in here as well. Okay, add record. Where is it? Here we go. I'm just going to copy a color from another faction as well, just to keep it quick, and done. We can set up a civil war. I'm not going to do it for this faction, but I have done it for other factions. Essentially you go, I mean, if you look at the Rome one, it gives you a better idea. So you got the faction, the main faction, which has a civil war. The new faction which is created will be the Rome Civil War faction, which also has to be set up in the factions table. And just like we're doing this current faction, that faction there has to be set up. And then it gives you the option here to actually change the name of the empire or the faction once the civil war is over. So we're not going to do that for this one. We don't need to do it. But what we do need to do now is, if we want to have this as a playable faction in the campaign, we have to set up some political parties for it. Now, this won't be a playable faction in my mod, but I'm going to set up a party just to show you in the tutorial. So we go to political parties table, add a record. Usually I'd do two. I'd create one for the players faction and one for the non-player faction. So, or maybe even 3 or 4 if you want to create, more diversity in the politics. I call it politics, emergent Athens. Don't care. I mean, this will be displayed in game, but I'm not going to really load up the game to show it. So, and this will be we want it to be able to play as this faction. We would select true here. We don't need that. UI icon can stay as X, and then you can put an effect bundle. So at the start of the game, when you select your faction, if you can recall the Rome faction, you have 3 different families. Each one has a set of different effects that you get if you play that faction, and that's determined by this effect bundle here. So you can put whatever effect bundle you want in there. I'm just going to put in a random one because yeah. And now you've got the initial starting power, which is like what percentage of or how many senators that faction actually starts with, or tribal chiefs or whatever. And so it's just the starting political power, and then some coloring here. So we've created the political party, and now we have to assign that political party to the faction. So we go to faction political parties junctions, add a record, and we just select them from the list. So we've got Emergent Athens and Emergent Athens. Okay, done. Okay, so next, let's go back to the factions tables. Okay. Faction groups. Okay, now we're going to do faction to faction groups. Now this determines, again, this is also to do with, so in Rome 2, when you select, the way you select a faction to play is you have a group of factions, whether it be Hellenic or Celtic or Germanic, and then you click on that grouping, and then you open up a selection of all the factions that are in there. So we're going to set that faction we've just created to one of the existing groups. You can of course create your own groups as well. Oh, wrong faction. Okay, so we're going to select this to the Greek group. Apply. Then, this is optional if you want to set up mercenaries to that faction or not. We do need to do faction uniform colors. So again, add a row. I'm just going to again pick random colors from another faction I've already set up. Apply. And now that is kind of the base. Oh yeah, there's also commander unit permissions we need to do. Commander unit permissions. So this determines which units can be used as a commander for this faction. So we're going to go down here. You can pick a Greek cavalry unit. Okay, so that can be the commanders, the generals for this faction can only use the units in this table. So I'll apply that. And that is most of the DB tables, the database tables that we have to set up. Now we have to do the actually add it to a campaign, and they require a different set of tables. So let's go into here. Just put in start, and you get all the different start pos tables coming up. So firstly, we're going to add the faction to the start pos. I'm actually going to add this to not to the main campaign, but rather to the Emperor campaign. So let's go add record. Then you see here that these ID numbers, they actually auto-generated by the assembly kit, which is another reason why you should use the assembly kit, because otherwise I'm not really sure how those numbers are generated, and if we put in a certain number, if it's going to work or not. Then we select our campaign, which will do Imperator Augustus. We'd say if it's playable, yes, we want it to be playable. Starting treasury, let's go 5,000. Government type doesn't really matter. State religion, so this is its default religion. We can make Greek or Hellenic. There it is. Is a major faction? Well, this one isn't. It's going to have one region when we do it. So let's say no. If it's a major faction, also determines how the other factions will deal with it. So this is all the AI stuff here. Well, you've got the difficulty, what it says when you select the faction in the faction selection screen. It says how difficult this faction is to play. That's there. I don't think it really does anything other than that. Then you've got some AI stuff which you can set if you like. Not sure if this stuff here works. I don't think it's actually used for anything. It's 0 in everything for vanilla, so probably from an old game. So you can just set all that to 0 as well. Then we come over, we've got some more AI stuff. So if we're not playing it, this is how it's going to behave. Let's call it Minor Hellenic. Okay, and then you've got a description here. You can put it whatever you want in this description, but we can just put in new faction, la-dee-da. Okay, and then we can it convert religion? Yep, let's put yes. And we want another, this CDIR, campaign director, that's what it means, military generator config determines how this faction will build its armies, what units it will use and what proportion and such. Which can also be, you can also create your own versions of this, but let's just go if we have a Greek one. Nope. Athenian maybe? Athens, there we go. Perfect. Okay, let's apply that. So now the faction is in the start pos. If we were going to create just a rebel faction like I'm going to do with this one, we would stop there. The faction's already in there. Oh, hang on, I've got to check one more thing I think I've forgotten. Okay, this one's important, which I didn't actually do. And that is this number here, starting order. This has to be, if it's not 0, it has to be a unique number. It can't be copying a number which another faction in that campaign already has. So I'm going to quickly do this here because we're going to make this a starting faction. If I was going to make it a rebel faction, I'd leave it at 0. If I'm going to make it a civil war faction, as you can see with my other civil war factions I've created already, they're all left at 0, and that's fine. But if we want it to be a playable faction, we have to give it its own starting number. So let's firstly sort this entire table by campaign. Campaign name is Emperor. Here you go, main Emperor. Let's go starting order. And you can see all the numbers here. Let's just put the number right at the end. So 74 is the last one. We'll give our faction 75. If you don't put this starting order in, then it will not build your start pos for you. Okay, so if we're going to build a rebel faction or a civil war faction, then we're done. That's all we have to do. But we're not doing that. We're going to make it playable. So next what we have to do is assign it a region to start with. So we can do that by one of two ways. We can go to Form Launcher, which is probably the easiest way to kind of visually see everything. And you go starting positions right here, and then we can kind of select our campaign, which is already there. And then we can go to our faction, which is generally right at the end. And then, oh yeah, so we need to give it a region. So with a region we can't do this, with the character setup we can. We'll go into there a bit later. So we're going to set up a region first. So we go Start Pos Regions. And then this has the regions for all the campaigns. So let's start by filtering only the Emperor ones. Emperor Augustus campaign, main Emperor is the code for that campaign. And we're going to give it the faction of Athens. Oh, okay, so someone's already got Athens. So let's give it Gortynia instead. I mean, we could change the capital here for Athens to Gortynia. So here we go. We have the owning faction is Anthony. The Roman faction Anthony has its capital in Athens. So actually we can just switch that capital to be here, and we'll make our capital for our new faction down here. You can see here, this is our new faction. Because the faction name or code is so long that you can't actually see all of it, we can see all of it if we actually extend this a bit though. So now we can see it, VV Emergent Emp Achaea Athene. And this is a capital. Okay, so now we can apply that. And we can go back into this table here now, this form launcher, and we can now see owned regions for this faction. Our new faction here is Achaea Athene, and it's the faction capital. Now what we can do is create, we have to create a faction leader. So we go new, let's pick a name for him. The M here stands for masculine or male, F female, and B is for both. So let's find a Greek name, random Greek name. And then we can have to change the type to general. Age doesn't matter. Ministerial position, we make faction leader. And the rest, oh, and playable, yep, that's good. The rest we can kind of leave as is. Position X, pos X, Y, pos X, pos Y. Now this, if you're going to have your character start inside a settlement, you can leave this as 0, 0. And instead we'll come down to this place here. We can also do it in the start pos character to settlement table, but we're going to do it all in here because it's a bit easier. So we go new, alright, so we're just assigning this character to which settlement, and it's already set up there. Emp Achaea Athene. Now, if you are using the same map for multiple campaigns, you'll see something like this. You'll see that there's actually 2 entries for Achaea Athene, one for one campaign, one for another. So the way to figure out which one is which is you look at the number here and you compare it to the number in start pos regions, and you filter out by campaign the one that you want. So you want the Emperor campaign, and now we can compare that number. Where is it? Oh, maybe it's the settlement. number. Yeah, okay, it's a settlement number. Okay, so let's filter it out by... Okay, you can see here we'll filter it by region, because the region actually has the campaign in there. So we can go region and put in Emperor. Okay. Now we see that our campaign settlement number is not matching at all to that, is it? Oh, there it is. Here it is. Okay. Use the ID number, sorry, not the whatever number this was, what I was using. Region number. No. So we want the ID for the settlement, and so we can match that number there to this one here. Okay, so now we've set that up. We can also add in some units for this general. Now you can do that, of course, through this form launcher, which is a bit easier, or we can actually go into the start pause land units, where we can select the general, the unit, a unique ID number, and the number of soldiers. Now the number of soldiers here is as a percentage of a complete unit. So if the unit has 120 men, you put in 100, and 100% of those units, those men will be in that unit, so 120. You can't make it more than 100. You won't get 240 men in a unit if you put in 200. It'll only be, the maximum is 100. But you can make less than full strength units at the start of a campaign. So we can do that here now as well. Give them a Greek, something Greek. Helot slingers. Okay, done. I know they're a Spartan unit, not a... Okay, let's do a Greek unit. Citizen companion. No, that's not. It's not Greek either, is it? Can't go wrong with hoplites. All right. Now he's got a hoplite unit with 100. There you go. You even got the percentage there to show. All right. So that's the faction pretty much set up. You can give that character traits, or if you want to give naval units, you can give it here. So yeah, so that's the basic setup for the faction. Now, factions usually have starting couple of other things which are a bit more advanced, which I'll go through now, and that is starting diplomatic relations, where they can have alliances at the start of a campaign, or they can start off in war and such. And that's what you do down here. Again, you can do that in Start Pause Diplomacy table. But we're not going to do that there, we're going to do it here. So click New. There you go. Which faction is it going to have a existing relationship with? And we'll pick an Emperor Augustus, Anthony, and we can call it a client state, for instance, with trade. Done. Now the other part is the starting relations with factions. That is determined by the past events, Start Pause past events. And so we can just add in a couple of records here. So the source is our new faction. And let's say with Emperor Anthony as well. And we had, so let's say we supported them 3 turns ago. And we can say that what did we do? We gave them a state gift. So this means that they'll start off with good relations with us. Say 5 turns ago. Good. And we'll be a client state of them, so we can kind of be chill. Okay, now that you've done that, that's pretty much everything you need to do. You can then export all your changes to binary, and then build your start pause, how I showed in the previous episode. And yeah, that's all there is to it. Now you're gonna want to put in your flags and all that kind of stuff. You probably put in more longer descriptions. Your flags, you set the UI folder for your flags in the factions table already, so you can just go in there and do that. And that's pretty much all there is to it. If you want your faction, of course, to have exclusive units on top of the there you go. If you want your faction to have exclusive units and you haven't created a custom military group that you've assigned to it, you can come into here and give it exclusive factions. This table isn't available in all. It's not available, I don't think, in Warhammer or Attila, one of the two. But if it is available, then you probably can use it. There's probably So that's pretty much how you set up a faction. So go crazy and create hundreds of different factions to bring more depth to your campaigns. So thanks for watching and happy modding.